welcome to the next episode of Going Digital. And our esteemed guest today is Mr. Balaji Aravamuthan, Group CIO of UPL Limited. Balaji is a chartered accountant and a global CIO with over 25 years of experience in delivering IT and digital initiatives across geographies, across industries, in very large groups like Reliance, Piramal, and now UPL. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege to have him amongst us here today to share his distilled experience as a digital leader. So welcome to our Going Digital series, Balaji, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sid. Nice of you for this wonderful introduction.
Yeah, so Balaji, a couple of questions for you. Your experience as a global CIO, we thought it'll be nice we can distill few nuggets from that. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, given the current business environment that we are seeing, what is the board looking for from a CIO to deliver value today?
Yeah, in the current day scenario, 1 year is long term. Okay, let us face some ground realities, right? So, which means whatever that we need to do, we need to ensure that it happens within that horizon. It's not only it happens in that horizon, but also the realization happens within that horizon, right? So it's a very difficult time in the overall scenario. COVID has made things upside down already, right? And when things are in that particular thing, then innovation should be at its peak, right? And then try to see whatever best that we can do on this. And if I want to say that there are twin expectations. One is how do we ensure cost optimization of IT and company? Right? Cost optimization of IT, that's my primary goal, and also company, which is the right. And it's a subtle issue, because when someone says that IT cost to be reduced, is it a good news or bad news? We don't know, because when it is to be reduced, which means you are not investing on IT, which is not a good news. So we need to be right allocation of funding to the right IT requirements is what the need of the hour. I could see that, right? Then, as I said before, what innovation can bring in to create a balance sheet impact. Balance sheet impact this year, now is what. So any project which is of beyond 3 months, we need to really give a weightage. Do we need to really take up now? Something as a rule of thumb, right? And if it is within 3 months, then by what time the balance sheet impact can happen for that? I think that's the other rule of thumb. That's the expectation of CIO from board. That's what I could see there.
Nice. That's nice and crisp. So if Balaji, I have to ask you that, give me some example, when you say that something that brings impact to the balance sheet of the board, in a short run, let's say 3 to 6 months. So any examples you'd like to share with us?
So if you look at digital can be, typical framework of digital operation, digital tactical, or digital strategic, right? So you can even give this. I can give examples under 3 things which can be looked at. But I would like to say, even the collaboration tool, I would call as digital operations, right? So whatever we are doing it today, especially work from home, right? There is something like digital and tactical. So digital and tactical is more like in the cost optimization space, right? So when we are really looking at, say, an example of yield improvement, say an example of automation of process, say robotic process automations, right? Or all these things comes under the digital tactical side of it, right? Digital strategy is the core of the business, right? So when we are really talking about digital strategy, then I would say that, okay, how digital is going to help your core of your industry. Even the current industry that we are seeing, how my farmer's life can be better by using digital, right? So that's something that we need to really look at, which is core to my industry, and then try to do what is their problem and how digital can be an enabler to solve their problems, can be part of the digital strategy to go through this. When it is core to this, it is a strategy. When it is tactical, then it's more like a cost saving, we call as optimization or re-engineering, whatever word that you want to say, you can say that. And then ops is ops. That's what I would like to classify.
Got it. So how do you take decisions for technology or digital decisions? And what criteria do you apply typically when you have to select between one technology or one vendor over another? How do you decide?
No, no, technology vendor is the next thing. The first thing is what is the business case,
Yeah.
right? And who is really supporting that business case, and how much assured are we really talking about the business case, right? I think that's the crux here, right?
Yeah.
Whatever is next thing, right? So when we are saying this vendor, this technology, what are all the things that we are going to go is the next portion of it, right? And for me, technology piece is only probably 30 to 40% of the entire stuff, right? The remaining 60 to 70% is the crux of it.
So, sir, when you're taking these kind of technology decisions, how do you take decisions on one vendor? You said that the first thing obviously is the business case, and that's probably the chartered accountant in speaking, that the business case is most important. But then after you've decided, okay, we want to go ahead with this initiative, how do you decide? What are the criteria you apply to decide between one vendor and another vendor, or one technology or another technology? How do you decide that? That would be nice to hear.
So, okay, what is the expectations from our end? There are two expectations. One is how much am I assuring that? Right? Will that vendor be in that particular assurance zone? Which means that is he only talking? Will he also deliver? So which means what we will also do a drill down of his due diligence on his particular competency, what all the stuff, where he has implemented, and then I can have my own tacit information with that CIO saying that boss, he's referring your name, is it happening, so on and so forth. That's one side of the coin. Natural side, all the Indians and all the things are obsessed with price. So we need to also see this, okay, who is really cost effective and how can we go about it? How am I going to bring in the value? Okay, the more the value, the less the cost is what the thing. And it's always relative term, right? We need to also say that, okay, how do you define value and how do you define cost? So to that extent, we try to do some sort of an hygiene factor, try to go with 2-3 vendors, identify your own thing, and then try to relate that which one will be more suitable for the top things. Bring in some audit criteria, because every big organizations will have their own audit criteria too. So you have to comply with those type of criteria and then try to identify a partner. Partner selection is actually a relatively simpler thing. It can work beautifully well, and it is time tested. So that's not an issue at all for me.
Lovely. So if there's this lot of talk about going digital, right? And that's what our series is about. It'll be lovely to hear from you, sir, from your point of view. What is the difference between the focus and the modus operandi of a chief digital officer versus a chief information officer, CIO versus CDO? Is there any difference? Demystify this for us.
Yeah, I think it's off late. It is being used very interchangeably, depending on who is the CIO, how it is being used. I would like to put it this way. For me, it is depth versus width. Okay, let us put it in simple terms, right? For CDO, the depth on the digital has to be very, very, top to bottom should be there on this, right? It is because it is touching the core essence of that company, right? So to that extent, since it is touching the core, the glamour is also there around it. So that's something that we need to be mindful. So to that extent, the CDO is very, very attractive to many people on this. Whereas when it comes to the CIO, it's about the width. It has the 5 things, which has all the dimensions that we are talking about: infrastructure, applications, then business process, then commercial, then governance. All the dimensions that you'll have to really look at that. When it comes to the CDO, it is more on the depth side of it. So how am I going to quickly get into this? So in other words, if I want to relate that from the project management point of view, CIO is by and large comes from the waterfall type of project, whereas CDO is more on the agile side of it, how to go about. And because the problem here, there is the assurance, here there is fail fast approach, right? I think that's the fundamental difference. There is nothing wrong if someone fails in digital. In fact, we should celebrate failures in digital so that we are taking and then correcting and then making it moving forward. Whereas in case of some of the time tested one, we cannot afford to say, I failed on this. I failed in integration, or I failed in ERP implementation, or I failed in application implementation. Then that is a disaster, right? So it is, we cannot afford to say on those things because that's the area where we have already traveled a number of times. We know what all the things to be talked about.
If I were to ask you that, what does it take for an IT professional? The large number of just, IT professionals who are just starting out in their career listening to this discussion. So what does it take for an IT professional to become a CIO, to get to that level, a group CIO or a CIO of a large company? What kind of skills do they need? What kind of personal attributes do they need? It will be lovely to hear from you on that, sir.
Typically once in 4 years, there is a life cycle management happens in an organization, right? So if you need to withstand 7 to 8 life cycle for any organization, anyone has to go through, right? You may be there up in the ladder that you have to go through. My wisdom says that you should be at least 2 areas, you should be master. At least 2 areas, because you never know which one will go waste at what particular point of time. Okay, if someone claims today that I am a COBOL master, then you will say that, okay, so what? That's what that we will certainly say that, right? Because it is of no relevance to us. And when someone studying the COBOL at that time, right, he would not have visualized that COBOL is not going to be useful on this. Probably you never know, it may come as a old when the new bottle is the flavor of the thing. So probably you will come across COBOL also again later. But I'm just saying minimum 2 areas, that is why there is a need for you to become master in 2 areas and jack in many areas, right? And jack in many areas. You cannot afford to say I ignore other areas, right? Then you can never be a save of this. You need to be jack in many areas and master in 2 areas, and then you can become CIO. That's what my secret sauce that I would say that.
What are those areas that they need to be experts, and what are those areas that they need to be jacks on? I mean, what's your view on that?
Yeah, so it depends on how they have started their career, right? Some people and CXOs are typically the culminations of this. So you may start from left, I may start from right, doesn't matter. Ultimately, we may have to reach there. For example, I started my area on account of chartered accountancy and then traveled from there to IT and then go for it. So my core competency around on the ERP side, which is SAP, the business process side of it, right? And also the other applications and the Javas of the world and other things. And then when I want to really put through the other side, in the commercial side, commercial acumen side is something of my core competencies around it to go through this, right? But if there is an IT engineer who started his career as an IT engineer, probably he may start as I would call as a programmer, try to be there in any one of these things, and then try to understand the business problem and then try to be master in that business process problem, so that at least he is becoming these 2 areas. So whatever is the technology on that particular day, he should be in a position to learn that quickly and then try to do this. The way I could see, once in 2 years, some big disruptive technologies are coming up. So we need to also be mindful, learn, unlearn type of things, and then go for that particular path that you want to go through. So whatever may be your path, and if you are an infrastructure person, then be an infrastructure side, and then probably you can pick up something around IoT, which is adjacent to infrastructure, and then try to do those type of things to work on this. Depending on which area that you want to travel, which is your master is something that I'm sure you should ask yourself. One should ask, and because it's also about what he likes about, right? At the end of the day, I cannot go and then tell what you should do, right? It's what gives you that energy, right? Something that one should look at. Okay, give that and then try to probably build the story, your own storytelling around those 2 masters, and then try to build it. That's what I think of.
Lovely. And if I were to ask you, what personal attributes are important for a person to rise to that level in an organization? I mean, skills is one
personal
thing.
attribute, irrespective of that, I think it is human attributes, right? It's very, very important to do that. For example, conflict resolution, communications, right? Walk the talk, right? When you are saying, you cannot fool someone for a longer time, right? People will immediately understand how much are you faking and how much real are you, right? So you have to walk the talk on what all the stuff that you are saying. And you should also see to that I call as empathy factor, right? People should have that empathy factor, so that stepping into other shoes and then try to solve the problems on the change management side of it. There are many such I call as sheets to build some better relationships. And it is applicable at the individual level. Even at the individual relationship, these things are very important, right? I think those attributes, organization is nothing but the embodiment of collective individuals, right? We need to see to that those attributes will be useful there. Yeah.
So one last question for you, that for an IT professional to succeed today in the current context of what's happening in the general industry, since you have experience across industries, across geographies, different kinds of companies, what would be the top 3 skills you think they need to update themselves on so that they stay relevant in in the industry today?
Okay, my top 3 picks are advanced analytics. Then I call as extended ERP, which means around ERP, whether it is let us call SFDCs or Aribas of the world, those type of things are extended, but still mobility, those type of things are extended ERP. And security is the third one that I would say that as the important thing that people have to really look at. And more new security problems are really coming up, right? So if someone is really able to at least master in those areas, I would think that he or she will have a good career to go through. These are all on the current day context. I would say that I would give an assurance only up to next 3 years for this, right? I would not even go beyond that because the world is so changing and I will never be in a position to do that. I'm a student even in that context. That's what I would like to say.
Lovely. Balaji, I think it's been nice inputs coming from you across different range of topics. Lovely interacting with you. Thanks a lot for your inputs and thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. It's so nice of you. I hope it's useful for your listeners and to you also. Thank you.
I'm sure it will be. Thank you so much.